Welcome to the channel, home of the only philosophy that matters. Today we are talking about Crinis. Before we get into it, I need to say two things. First, if you have not yet subscribed, please do so. I'm afraid that there is very little known about Crinis, which means that this video is going to be pretty short. So if you are hungry for more philosophy after this, or even if you just want to distract yourself from the unrelenting march of time by watching another one of our videos, Serenthus was a Stoic philosopher who lived during the 2nd and 1st centuries BC. Supposedly, Zenon stayed with the man all night, consoling him and cheering him up, and Crinis recovered. Now, we have already discussed this anecdote at length in my video on Zeno of Citium, so I won't rehash it here. According to Plutarch, these coins were minted in honor of Athena, whose head appeared on one side of the coin and a four-bird pediment adorned the other side. These coins are famous for their beauty, but they are also important to philosophy because the Stoics used them to make a point about indifference. Nature is always changing, always flowing, always moving forward. They knew that no matter what happened, they could still choose to be good and virtuous. If you did, please like and share it. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. And this gave them a sense of peace that nothing could disturb. And so too should we. To resist nature is to resist the rational order of the universe. And this, for the Stoics, was the highest possible sin. Thus, the Stoics believed that we should accept whatever fate throws at us with tranquility, since it is impossible for us to change anything. But this does not mean that they thought we should simply give up in the face of adversity. Rather, they believed that we should accept whatever happens with serenity, and then we should do our best to make the best of the situation. The Stoics believed that they shouldn't hanker after beautiful objects, and what could be more beautiful than a gleaming silver tetradrachm? But they also didn't think that we should despise beautiful objects either. They thought that we should treat them as indifferent. That is to say, we shouldn't desire them or avoid them. Instead, I'll direct you to that video, which you can find right here. For the Epicureans, too, held that we shouldn't hanker after beautiful objects. But the word apathy, as you know, means a lack of caring or concern. In other words, the Epicureans thought that we ought to care so little about beautiful objects that we wouldn't even bother to possess them in the first place. For the Stoics, however, indifference meant something different. The Stoics argued that we ought not to care whether we possess something or not. They held that all external things are in the hands of fate, and thus it is futile to worry about losing them. But this did not imply that they should be dismissive of these things. Indeed, the Stoics believed that we ought to appreciate all the good things that come our way, even while recognizing that they could be taken away at any moment. He was probably a pupil of Archidemus of Tarsus, who we talked about in the last episode. There are a few other people named Serenthus that we need to keep track of, but luckily they are easy to distinguish from our Crinis. There is, first of all, Serenthus of Paros, who was a pupil of Epictetus and the teacher of one of the main characters in the Tale of Two Friends, which I also discussed in my video on Epictetus. Then there is Serenthus the tragedian, who according to Suetonius wrote tragedies based on historical events. Finally, there is Serenthus of Athens, who wrote a work entitled Athenian Constitution. Unfortunately, none of the works of any of these Serenthus survive to the present day. There are no surviving writings of his own, but he is mentioned by Plutarch in his essay on the Stoics, where he is cited as an example of someone who was able to maintain their composure in the face of physical pain. According to Plutarch, Crinis was flogged under King Attalus, presumably for some kind of political transgression, though Plutarch doesn't tell us what crime exactly Crinis committed that would warrant such punishment. But he does tell us that Crinis bore his excruciating pain with dignity. So dignified, in fact, that when the king asked him why he did not cry out, given that the stripes were falling upon him, Crinis replied, "Is that an appropriate sound for a man to make?" Or as Plutarch puts it, he said, "Would you have me howl like a woman or a child?" When Attalus persisted and asked if there was any pain that he could inflict that would cause Crinis to cry out, Crinis answered, "There is, that you tear your portrait off the coins." Taken aback by this answer, the king stopped the flogging immediately. Why not watch the video that I did on Aristarchus of Samos? It's a banger. You can find it here. Also, we have an incredible community of philosophers on a server. Join us there to talk about philosophy, share resources, and chat with other lovers of philosophy from all over the world. The link is in the description. And finally, I must also ask that you consider supporting us through a platform. This is the best way to support us directly. By signing up, you will gain access to exclusive perks such as early access to ad-free videos, access to our book club, and our private Discord chat. So go check it out. The subscription button is right there, just below my beautiful head. Why should you subscribe? Well, because by doing so, you will ensure that you never miss one of our uploads. We have videos on all sorts of topics, from introductions to some of the greatest thinkers of the ancient world to explorations of the major fields of philosophy, as well as discussions on how to be intellectually and spiritually resilient in the face of life's challenges. Now, this second point, and this pertains specifically to this episode. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Who was Cerinthus? There is another story about him that is related in Diogenes Laertius' Life of Zeno, where Zeno is visited by a man named Crinis, who was dying of a painful disease. Now, these are all of the stories that I know of that feature Cerinthus as a character. One final note about Cerinthus of Athens: he is responsible for the ancient Athenian currency called the tetradrachm. In this regard, the tetradrachm brings to mind the Epicurean doctrine of apathy. Why should we do this? Well, because by appreciating what we have, we are living in accordance with nature. This is why the Stoics were famous for their ability to endure pain and hardship with a calm mind. So that's Crinis for you. I hope that you enjoyed this video.